George Stevens is one of only 40 or so luthiers in the country, making early musical stringed instruments at his workshop in East Kent.
Bet you didn't know they were called luthiers. A collection of beautiful lutes, gittins and harps fill his home in Lydd. Sue Kinnear has been to meet him for the latest in our series of Coast and Country.
It's a romantic image from the time of Henry VIII, the wandering minstrel playing his lute to anyone who would listen. But now George Stevens is one of a very small group of people to still champion the music, both playing and making early stringed instruments. At the All Saints churchyard in Lydd, he enjoys turning the clock back 400 years or so.
A very popular instrument, the lute, perhaps the most popular instrument of the Renaissance. Gentlemen would have played it to woo their ladies. It would have been used to accompany the dance, such as the galliard or the pavan. I don't think it's essential that you actually need to be able to play an instrument in order to make it, although it's obviously an advantage. But having a good ear is definitely an advantage. To select the right pieces of wood, to hear the resonance of those pieces of wood.
George trained at the London College of Furniture and has been making early stringed instruments for 15 years. A collection of much cherished pieces fill his home, waiting for sale.
Well, there's two lutes at the back here, which are a bit like guitars, except for the fact that they have a round back made up of separate pieces of wood.
And how do they sound?
They sound... This is perhaps a forerunner of the lute. It's called a gittern. It's all hollowed out of a solid piece of wood. This is actually lime wood. So without the top on, it looks a bit like a soup ladle.
Lovely.
Sounds a little bit like a mandolin. Was used in the medieval period. These harps are class acts, that's what they're called. They have brass strings, and the sound box again is hollowed out of one piece of wood, with the backboard being put on afterwards.
The music is in sharp contrast to the noise and dust of George's workshop. Here it takes him 6 weeks to make just one lute. He uses carefully selected wood from across Kent and Sussex, cutting the slim sections of the lute back before bending them into the required shape and gluing them together.
It's much more effective if you can discuss with the player exactly how they want the neck to feel, for example, and the distances between the strings. Then you can make it how they want it to be. Working with wood, I do very much enjoy working with wood. Every piece is different that you pick up. Even two pieces from the same tree are going to have potentially different characteristics, so it's a constant learning curve. During the Renaissance, fruit woods were very commonly used, as well as sycamore and yew, which is what this particular back is made of.
He's drawing on centuries-old techniques to make these early instruments. They were at their most popular for 300 years, up until about 1750, but extensive reconstruction work on lutes from the 1970s has revived interest in the instruments.
It's a very pleasing form, I think, pleasing to the eye. It's got a unique sound, it's a very delicate instrument. It's a pleasure to make them, it really is.
Lutes cost up to £3,000 to buy, and the demand for them is small. Clearly, being a luthier is not going to make George rich, but then he makes a living doing what he loves, keeping music from our history alive. Sue Kinnear in Lydd for Meridian Tonight.
Now the sun's out, so where do we think that Ian McBride might be? Outdoors?